Looks like we got everybody in here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. Thank you for showing up once again. This is our third virtual tasting, back-to-back Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. And I'm Robert Young, or Robert Young II. I'm fifth generation of the Robert Young family. I'm going to be one of your hosts today, as well as Matt Michael, our winemaker, and then Rachel Kelly Taylor, who is our assistant cellar master, my second cousin, so sixth generation of the family. And what we're going to be tasting today is our 2019 Rosé and then our 2017 Cabernet Franc, which are brand new releases for y'all. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and open up the Rosé or the Cab Franc or whatever wine you're enjoying with us today. Additionally, we are going to be going into or featuring two new wines, which are the 2016 Thomas Meeks Cabernet and then our 2016 Silas Cabernet Sauvignon, and we're going to elaborate just on what those wines are specifically. Okay. And then I'm going to, just as a thank you for joining us, we do have a shipping promotion going on, which is $5 on a case and $10 on 6 bottles. And then we do have 2 additional tastings coming up. One I'm just going to mention right now is 4/29, so that would be next Wednesday, and that's going to be really discussing some of our, I guess, summer collection wines, like our Sauv Blanc, Rosé, Viognier, Malone, and our Chardonnays. So what I am going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Rachel here, which is my second cousin. She is our assistant winemaker. Can you see everybody, Rachel?
Thanks, Robbie.
Hey, real quick,
Hey,
Robbie.
Jose.
Yes.
Can you pull that shot, the bottle shot of the rosé back up so everyone can see?
Absolutely.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. It's good to see everyone's faces, lots of faces. If you were here on last week, you saw a guest appearance from my baby. I did just have a baby last December, so I've been pretty much social distancing for a few months, adjusting to being a new mom. So that's been really, really fun. But I'm going to talk to you guys about the rosé, which I'm excited to be trying because I haven't tried it since it was bottled. I was there when it was made, but yeah, I'm excited to be trying it. So you guys can see the tasting notes there. I'm going to talk a little bit about how rosé is made for those of you who don't know. So there's a couple different methods of making rosé. Rosé basically take red grapes and making them go white wine. So for red grapes, they're getting the color from their skin. All grapes start with white juice, and for red wine, you leave them on their skins to get that color. So the color from rosé is coming from the red grape skins, but we're making it like a white wine, which is why it's lighter and more similar to white wines. And the way we make ours is a direct to press style. So like one of the of making rosé is called the saignée method. So that's where you just drain juice off of a red fermenter. But the way we make it is we're actually picking grapes just for the rosé. So we pick them earlier in the season than you would harvest for a red wine. So lower bricks, higher acid. And when we pick them, we bring them to the winery and they go right into the wine press. And we monitor that press to get it close to the color that we want, because obviously the juice is coming into contact with the skins, and that's why we get that beautiful pink color. So that is the beginning of the process, and then we press the juice off, and then the juice cold settles, and then we ferment like a white wine. And then once that's done, we put it to neutral barrels. It doesn't go through malolactic fermentation. And that's why you have that really nice bright acid in this wine. One of the reasons we make, as you can see from Malbec and Merlot, those of the red grapes we produce, the Malbec is really kind of the best candidate to make a rosé because it has some really nice fruit characters. It has a lot of nice berry flavors. So that's why we use it primarily for our rosé, and then we do put in a little bit of Merlot just to kind of add a little bit something else, some more complexity and a little structure to the rosé. So if there's any questions about the rosé, you can put them in the chat and we can answer them later. But now I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk about the Cab Franc.
Hi, everyone. Greetings from San Francisco. Thanks for pulling that up, Robbie. For those who weren't on the last Zoom meeting, I'm the winemaker, Matt Michael. I took over for Kevin in 2016. So Rachel's been my trusty assistant ever since, and she's really kind of taken the reins with the rosé. So good job on this, Rachel. The Cab Franc 2017 is a really nice wine. It's still very young, so I'd recommend right now you're going to get some of your club shipment. Give it a little decant right now. I mean, this is still a young red wine. This will easily age for a while, but right now I would lay it down or give it a decant for maybe 3 or 4, 5, 6 hours, depending on what your evening entails. But as far as the Cabernet Franc goes, one of the things that I think is so interesting about this Cabernet Franc and this property is that most of the hillsides in Alexander Valley, Napa, are carved out for Cabernet Sauvignon. So you see all the hillsides for Cabernet Sauvignon. That's because it commands big dollar. That's where it gets its richness from and its concentration. We've actually carved out a portion of our hillside for Cabernet Franc, which you don't see a lot. Typically, you get down on the lower bench or even on the alluvial flats. And what it can do sometimes is make a less interesting wine. Cabernet Franc is a lot like Merlot. It needs to be grown in really specific areas in order to coax out all of the uniqueness and concentration of the wine. So what you see here is a very dark, rich, interesting Cabernet Franc. I mean, think when you smell, think wet tobacco leaf, think that dry herb, but that really interesting cassis and current that you get from Cabernet Sauvignon. And it just has these layers, and as it opens up with air, you see more and more of it. I really appreciate the fact that the family did carve out hillside for both Merlot and Cabernet Franc, because not only does it show the varieties how they should be shown and show what Alexander Valley can do with them, but it also makes them great blenders for wines like the Scion and some of the other little touches that we put, like in the Alexander Valley Cab. We'll squeeze a little bit in there, maybe 0.5% every once in a while. So what you really see is, I think, the true expression of Cabernet Franc. I've been tasting a lot since I've come to Robert Young to get familiar with the variety, because we haven't really, in my career, I haven't really experienced a lot of Cabernet Franc. I picked Kevin's brain a lot on it before we transferred positions. And one of the things that keeps ringing true is just how special the site is, in particular the hillside, for the concentration, the aroma depth, and just the flavor, the overall flavor of the wine.
Matt, can I step in with a question?
This is age for 18. Go ahead.
So we have a question here. How long do you leave the red grape skins in contact with the wine juice for a rosé versus a red wine? So that's pertinent to both these.
Okay, that's a good question. So think of rosé essentially handling like a white wine. So when we harvest Chardonnay or Sauvignon Blanc, the idea is to have minimal skin contact. So you can think about 4 to 6 hours somewhere in the press, because the press cycle usually takes 3 to 4 hours, and we might hold a little bit longer. But that's all the skin contact you're going to have with whites and with a rosé. Now, red wines, you'll actually crush the fruit, and the juice and the fruit will ferment together. So the skins will be in there the whole time. So if you have a 14 or 15-day fermentation, those skins will be in there the whole time. So it's a completely different cycle for the grapes and the wine.
Great, thank you. And I have one more rosé question. Sorry to jump back. I believe this is the 3rd vintage of the rosé. What's the differences between the Malbec Merlot proportions, and why?
Sorry, I lost you a little bit. I think my signal's bad, Lindsay.
That's right. I just was curious. I think this is the third vintage of the rosé, and I know it's Malbec and Merlot, so just was wondering the different proportions each vintage and why.
Rachel, you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah. I think we were just playing around with it in the beginning. We're kind of getting a feel for what worked best for a rosé. And we kind of, in our Malbec and Merlot blocks, we've actually picked specific areas and rows that kind of have a bigger berry, so that, you know, just the idea that you're kind of getting more of a rosé kind of character from those bigger, juicier berries that you would rather have in a wine like this than our actual red wine that we're making, where we really want those small, concentrated, big flavors. And so it's just kind of been a process. We started with less, we started more 50-50, and we've kind of dialed back the Merlot and dialed up the Malbec over the last few years, just because we thought that tasted better and it worked better for the rosé.
Got it. Yeah, it's fantastic this year. Matt, I'll let you return to the Cab Franc, and then I think we have a few more questions in a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So just quickly, we did shift the aging regime on the Cabernet Franc. It used to be aged for 24 months, and we pushed it up a little bit. What we were finding is that that extra 6 months, 7 months in barrel wasn't really adding anything to the wine. So what we can do is tack on a little bottle aging on the backside. So if you've been a fan or a member of the winery for a long time, you've probably noticed that we're doing a shorter aging regime.
Great. And I know you mentioned last time, I believe,
it's just on this wine. Sorry, I keep losing my signals really bad, Lindsay.
The other question, I think you answered this last time, but for decanting a red that you feel is a little too young, I think we usually wait about 3 to 6 months in the tasting room to stop decanting. Is that kind of what you're recommending at home?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's one of those things where I think the wine's going to evolve and open up beautifully if you decant. I find it less necessary to do long decants when wines get a lot older. I mean, it is interesting to decant them, but they tend not to respond to the oxygenation as well as young wines do. Young wines are like sponges still, and they can absorb a lot of oxygen. And with that oxygen in the decanter, aromas come out that weren't there when you first opened it. So that's why if you go and decant a wine and smell it at first and then wait an hour or another hour, each time you're going to be smelling different things, and the flavors evolve with the aromas as well. So that's why decanting is such an important tool, especially for young wine.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know Scott is probably itching to say that Cab Franc is one of our specific varietals that goes away pretty quickly. Our 16 we ran through very, very quickly. So 17 is just freshly out, but we did not make a lot of barrels of this guy. So,
well, you made 9 more than the first time.
Yeah, we've heard your story.
I can say from many years here in the tasting room, this is I'd say probably one of the fastest selling wines we produce. It just has a big fan base. It's very soft, very approachable. It's not like the other end of the spectrum where it can be very, very big and bold. It just drinks very beautifully.
Is there anyone out there that has a 17 Cab Franc open today and would like to make a comment or ask a question? The question here, how long should the Cab Franc be cellared, Matt and Rach?
Until they find it.
You can safely cellar it for 10 years. I like to typically, when I get red wines, kind of with this structure and this style, I like to open them up about anywhere from 3 to 6 years out to get a feel for them. You do an initial impression, and you lay some down. So it's kind of nice to buy a few of them, and you can kind of watch it as it goes. But this could easily go for 10 years, no problem.
Great. And is that pretty much true of our other Bordeaux varietals like Malbec and Petit Verdot?
Yes, it is. This style is what I would call a Robert Young style. Is we have always had an extracted style. Now it's not tannic or overly tannic, but it's extracted. So we get a lot of color, a lot of fruit intensity, and those wines tend to cellar very well.
Great. Do you want to move on to the other two cabs that are upcoming? We got a lot of questions, and actually some folks that ordered from the last tasting about the Stylus and the Meeks, and who better than the winemaker to kind of discuss them a little bit?
Absolutely. So what you're seeing now is the Thomas Meek Cabernet. And that's really a tribute to Robert's uncle who saved the farm. He essentially put a trust against the farm to save it. So it's a really important figure in the family. And this wine is, and I think I mentioned it before, but for you, those of you who weren't on, really what we wanted to do was expand upon the property. We have so many interesting blocks here that weren't going into the program. And really what I did with Rachel was we just started walking the blocks and saying, okay, is there, tasting the fruits that are getting riper, is there any areas that we think we could pull upon to make some really interesting wines here? The goal is not to just make wines to make wines. Is there a fit, and is there a place in the vineyard or in the property that we could really pull some interesting fruit out and do some different things? And so the Meek is really actually a source from multiple hillside Cabernet blocks, and it's very small amounts, anywhere from 3/4 to 1 1/4 tons that we pull from different areas. And we actually go through, Rachel can attest to this because she's dipped under wires with me taping things off. We just tape off certain areas in the vineyard blocks that we feel have exceptional quality, and we harvest those separately from everything else, and that's what goes into the Meek. So Meek is really kind of showing the deep red fruit side of Cabernet. If you've had Bob's Burn Pile or you've had Scion, you get that really deep black fruit side of Cabernet. This shows the red fruit side, and it's really exotic and it's really interesting, and it's a diversion from the Bob's and the Scion, which have that deep black fruit. It's a very interesting wine. I would say that right now at this particular time, it's up there with one of my favorites that we've produced. It's a very interesting style, and I think you guys will like it. It's a definite break from the Bob's, but it shows kind of what our property can do in different areas and different soil types.
Do you want to talk a little bit about natural fermentation, Matt?
Yeah, so one of the things that, the pendulum swings in the wine industry. Chardonnay is cool, Chardonnay is not cool. These things happen and it goes back and forth. So right now what winemakers are trying to do is really try to get back to the land and get back to, the expression of the area, the expression of the fruit. And one of the ways to do that is to take your fingertips out of it as a winemaker. So the paring back on oak, using the native yeast that come in with the grapes and fermenting with that. And what it does is it really gives an emphasis of the particular area where you are, because those yeasts that are on your stems and your grapes that come in when you're harvested, those are only in your area. So what we've done with the Meek Cabernet is we've done a native ferment. So we actually put these in small bins and we let them spontaneously ferment. And so what you get is a really cool, interesting, different expression from these native yeasts that you don't get from a commercial yeast strain. It doesn't mean commercial yeast strains are bad or they don't make good wine. It just means that native yeast strains have really exotic characteristics sometimes, and it really helps emphasize the Meek and everything that it has to offer from the fruit in the hillside area where it's grown.
Great, thanks. And I think it's a good time to reinforce that 24 months in French oak really helps us to age the bottles for you as well. So that's something that we here at Robert Young have always done. And before we move on to the Silas, unless you have anything else for Meeks, Matt?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that Thomas Meeks the 16 is actually available right now. Originally, we were going to unveil that at the end of May, but with all the current chaos, we've actually released that now. So that's very exciting, and all of the deals still apply. It's actually, it's just like Bob's, it's 95 with no discount, but the shipping deals will apply. So that's exciting. Silas, the next wine that Matt's going to talk about is Future. And actually, 2 weeks from today, May 6th, Matt's going to be back to talk about our Cabernet Sauvignons, all three of the Bob's, the Silas, and the Meeks in more detail, and sort of our Futures program. But here's Matt with the Silas.
Okay, so if you haven't seen the Silas bottle yet, this is what it looks like. It's a beautiful package. It's actually been silk screened, which means that it has no label on it. The label is actually embedded onto the bottle. So it's a really beautiful package. For those of you who don't know, Silas was Robert Young's father, so it's a tribute to Robert Young's father. And you guys are all familiar, or most of you are familiar with the Bob's Burn Pile. The Bob's Burn Pile is our highest block on the estate, and also has our most concentrated Cabernet. We have really concentrated, delicious Cabernet throughout the property, but the Bob's is kind of at the highest point. It's got really rocky soil. It produces vines that have just really concentrated small berries, and that's why you get that depth and concentration with the Bob's Burn Pile. But over the last few years, the block has really started to source a little bit more fruit than we wanted to put in the bob, or we could put in the bob's burn pile. And so what we decided to do was take the best area of the bob's burn pile, which just has really, really small berries and most concentrated fruit, and show a more natural expression. In other words, less oak. It's 50% new French oak instead of 100%, and blend it with a little bit of Petit Verdot. And what Petit Verdot really does is bring a pop of fruit and a pop of expression that the Cabernet in that site, when it's in those really rocky soils, just tends to be so Cabernet that almost that wild character that Cabernet can have on the hillside. And Petit Verdot just rounds it out with fruit and a beautiful floral aroma. And so what you're really seeing is the same fruit there under a different expression. It's very exotic, it smells wonderful, and it's got that same deep black fruit that you expect from Bob's Burn Pile. You get to see more of it without that kind of the smoky, toasty notes of the oak in there. So it's a really different expression. I think it's a wonderful wine. Now, I should mention that because we're carving this area out of the block, it does not mean that Bob's Burn Pile quality is going down. We have such wonderful fruit in there that there's no way that anything can diminish there. We were just looking at a situation where we had a wonderful opportunity to create something just slightly elevated above Bob's, and so that was our goal here.
And again, there'll be a more detailed discussion on May 6th about these cabs, these 3 cabs in particular. And you still have time to get Bob's and Meeks, but Silas is again a future available this fall. So another quick cab question. You netted the fruit difference between Bob's and Scion. How about the tannins?
Yeah, so the tannin profile on these are all very smooth. What they are is there's a misnomer in kind of the wine culture that a wine has to be very big and tannic in order for it to be age-worthy or for it to be of the highest quality. That's simply not true. I spent a lot of my time at Davis and post-Davis looking at phenolic chemistry, which is the chemistry of grapes and wine chemistry that involves phenolics. And what it really dictates, there's a ratio. So you can have very concentrated wines, and if they have the right proportions of things, they can be very supple and soft in the mouth. So what you're seeing with these wines is we've really honed the tannin profile in on them. So they're still big, rich, concentrated, will age forever, but you get this richness and this freshness of the fruit. And that's just really kind of how we've slightly changed the fermentation style and just kind of adjusted some of the other things in the cellar. So still what you expect, just beautiful, rich, supple wines.
Got it. I actually don't even know this. Is that it's a silk screen? Is that how we printed this year for the Silas?
Yeah. So we actually send it to a company, and they actually print silkscreen wise on the actual bottle. So it's a beautiful package.
Fancy.
One thing I just want to circle back on, Rachel mentioned berry size, and I think it's always interesting to bring this up, is that, a lot of people don't realize that when you're making wines, the concentration has to do with the size of the grape berry versus the juice inside of it. So the smaller the berry is, the higher the skin to the juice ratio. That's the concentration. So when she mentioned big berries for the rosé, you're not looking to make something that's tannic and phenolic with a rosé, something that has a punch to it. You want something that's going to taste more like a white wine. So you actually like those big berries on the reds for the rosé. So just dovetailing off what you were saying before, Rachel.
Very cool. Rob, do you want to move on to the next slide and kind of chat about everything else we're doing?
Yeah, so right now, of course, we are closed up here for tastings up in the tasting room. However, what we are doing is some curbside pickups by appointment, and also free deliveries within Sonoma County. Typically, it's Monday through Friday, 10 to 3:30. And if you're interested in buying any of these wines that we went through today or anything on our website, you can simply just give us a call for either a curbside pickup for either some wines or your wine club shipment, or delivery for anything you'd like to purchase as well. And we have our phone number, 707-431-4811. Either contact myself, Robert, or Mackenzie, and we'll gladly deliver those to you.
Yeah, and I'll help you deliver that. Not a problem. Might not be as big of an order that you thought, but
yes,
there's a price.
So just to reiterate, we do have a special offer, which is $5 shipping on a case, $10 shipping on 6 bottles, just as a thank you for joining us today. And Future tastings, we are going to have those the next upcoming Wednesdays, 4/29, and that'll be highlighting the Viognier Malone. We'll be offering a 6-pack, which includes the Clone, the Chardonnay, the Rosé, Sauv Blanc, Viognier, and Malone, with only $10 shipping, which is great, especially with the weather. It's getting a lot warmer out here. Today, I think it's just about 80, going to be almost 90, I think, by the end of the week, which is really great. And then following that on May 6th, we're going to do a Cabernet tasting, and that'll be showcasing our Bob's Burn Pile, probably our Scion or AV Cab, and that'll be with Matt, our winemaker, and he'll go through all that for you all.
Absolutely. And if you guys are interested in continuing these, we'd love to know your feedback or your thoughts. We were thinking also about maybe a Friday night happy hour in the next few weeks, kind of a little bit closer to our opening as appointment only up in the tasting room, whenever that shall be, hopefully late May, early June at the latest. Couple more questions here real quick, guys. Matt, tell us a little quick synopsis, please, about the Malone, just so folks that don't know anything about it, since it's rare, can understand.
Yeah, of course. So I was actually quite pleased when I got here to see that we had some Malone on property. So Malone is actually a grape. It was originally grown in Burgundy, and then it was actually declassified from the region. So it's no longer grown there or allowed to be grown there. It's kind of settled in the Loire Valley. So Malone is a very interesting grape because there's almost none of it grown in California. There's a few vineyard sites in California, a few in Oregon. It's really, really an interesting varietal. It tends to have a high acidity, and it tends to have very interesting fruit profiles on it. So what we've done is we harvested about 1.5 tons of it, and we did a whole cluster press on it, and we fermented it in neutral barrels, very neutral barrels, like almost 10 years old. And then we just let it sit on leaves. Everything I researched and read about Malone was that it was handled very similar to a Chardonnay. So it was aged sur leaves or on its leaves in barrel. And typically they would stir it and age it longer. But what we found with our Malone on the site is it's just got this beautiful floral attribute to it, almost like a white flower. And we were worried about losing that by doing extended aging on it. So what we did was bottle it after about 4 months with the Sauvignon Blanc and the Rosé. So what you're going to see is something that has kind of a mid-weight texture, somewhere between a Chardonnay and a Sauvignon Blanc, but very aromatic and nothing like you've ever smelled before. You give this blind to your wine friends that know a lot of stuff and don't tell them what it is, they're going to have a real hard time figuring this one out. But it smells wonderful. It's just nothing like you've smelled before. It's very exotic. So we're really excited about this one, and I think it's going to be a really fun one for you guys as a break from Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc. It's a really fun one to drink, and especially on days like today out here.
Matt, you have a couple shout outs for the Malone. One gal who works at the very prestigious Jonathan Club in LA said it was just amazing, really liked trying that. And of course it's so unusual, which is great. Another member said that they just recently had our Chardonnay with scallops and it was perfect pairing. So that's awesome. And then on more of a personal note, one of our members comments that Robbie, your hair looks very perfect today.
No comments on my hair, huh?
Will and I have to agree because we talked about it before we were all live about his hair perfection. So well noted, Lisa.
You can't be doing that yourself, Robbie. You're cutting that yourself.
Of course I am.
I have a shipping
Barbara has a mansion.
I have a shipping question. Is there a code to use to get the shipping deal, or just call up and you'll do it?
There are codes if you go through the website, but you're welcome to just email me. The code on the website, I believe we have B on here. Let's see. I think it's ship 10 and ship 5. I'm pretty sure, but if you have any questions, contact me and I'll double check those.
That's correct. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another quick question here from Matt. There was a question about what is a good pairing with Rosé. Maybe Rach wants to answer. Maybe Rach is gone. I don't know.
Rachel, are you here?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, go ahead. Putting you on the spot.
I think rosé can work with seafood, kind of like other white wines. Also, like I've heard of like strawberry salad. Like I don't know. I think of rosé in the summertime, so I think of like light summer.
Sometimes it just pairs well with a glass, to be honest. But It's no, I think light fare. Like she said, light seafood dishes, even like a risotto, that would be nice with it. You can even do some salads as long as the vinaigrette isn't too aggressive in it. So there's a lot of options with rosé. Just think lighter fare. Even some light pastas, maybe like a spring pasta primavera or something like that. But you really want to stay away from kind of things that have a high vinaigrette thing in them. Sometimes that can distract from the wine.
Very cool. And we'll send the recording of this tasting as well as information on the next upcoming two. And again, any feedback is welcome, and please take advantage of our shipping deals. We can't ship to the warm places for much longer, guys. And I know there are some East Coast areas that still have snow, so weather is being checked.
And I'd like to add as well, these future tastings we do post on our Facebook, especially, and then on our Instagram. So I'm sure that's how many of you kind of found out about this was through our Facebook. Also, the recording to this and then also our previous tastings are available on our YouTube. So if you just type in Robert Young Estate Winery on YouTube or Google, you're gonna find all these videos as well.
Very cool. And you want to show the slide, Rob, for the large formats and the verticals that we still have available? Very slim pickings, guys, which means that they're the most popular ones that went fast and just years ago, and we've had them cellared for you. So take advantage of that, absolutely. And don't forget about that Cab Franc. I know it's starting to get warm, but again, that'll be a goner soon. It's popular.
Yeah, any of you local people, I'll be happy to deliver any of those 3 liters to your house. Not a problem. That way I know where you live in case you got to open it up. Well, I'll be there. Yeah, especially that Scion.
I know you guys won't be with us next time, but we'll see you on May 6th.
Yes. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Say that again.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
On April 29th. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All right, thank you everybody. Gary, thank you.
Bye, Dad.
Scott.
Hey, Scott Lee. All right. Good to see you.
Good show. Good show.
Yeah. No good wine. You missed it. I got the wine, dude.
You can send me a case. I'll send you $5
That makes sense.
for $10.